You're welcome. IPF rule change on the bench press. I am not a fan of the rule change. I don't think it's logical. I don't think it's practical. I think it's going to cause more issues than it's going to solve. The big arches were mostly a non-issue. There's a very small minority of lifters achieving these super hyper arches that make the internet go crazy. Just observing the overwhelming majority of people who complained, and of course there's going to be exceptions, but the overwhelming majority of people who complain about this either don't compete at all or don't compete in IPF affiliates and it doesn't apply to them. And these are the people who basically trolled and bullied the IPF into changing the rule. I do find humor in that, trust me. That is pretty hilarious that the IPF would cave to a bunch of internet trolls. In a way, I applaud your efforts. Like, good job, internet trolls. You did it. You guys, you won this battle. But again, the people celebrating it don't compete in IPF affiliates mostly and don't compete at all. So it's kind of funny that these are people celebrating it, that it doesn't affect them, which is kind of internet trolling in essence. People complaining about shit that doesn't pertain to them. Anyway, as far as the practicality, IPF posted on their page examples of good bench presses and bad bench presses based on this rule change. A lot of these pictures look very similar. So there is going to be some inconsistent judging. The way I understand it, the head judge is not to give the press command until they are sure that the elbows have made depth. So it's going to put a lot of extra stress on spotters and stuff. You're going to maybe see some very long pauses and the lifter never hits elbow depth and never gets a command. Boy, I don't know if the side judges are going to be able to have any say on this. They're really not at a great angle to see this. They're also looking at feet. They're looking at glutes. They're looking at the bar already. This, now with two eyes, you're looking at 4 different places at once. It's going to be a mess logistically. There's going to be some unintended consequences. I've been looking back at some of my benches when I was 308, fully bloat maxed. I have pinkies inside the rings, which is what a lot of people said the solution should be: just make everybody bench with their pinkies inside the rings. I do, and some of my benches are borderline based on these pictures that they're showing. And I keep mentioning the pictures because the wording of the rule is also weird. It is, I'm paraphrasing, but the bottom of the elbow has to break the top of the shoulder joint. Look at an anatomy book, and then look at a lifter lying on a bench with a shirt on, and try to find the top of their shoulder joint. You see, yeah, it's going to be rough. And again, there's so many moving parts on the bench already. On squats, you've got your side judges looking for the hip crease at the top of the thigh to break the top of the knee. And that's essentially all they're looking at the bottom of the squat. They don't have to look at anything else. And then as the lifter comes out of the hole, obviously they can look for up and down motion on the bar and things like that and other infractions. But they can focus solely on that depth. The head judge, again, they're going to have the best angle, but the way I understand is they're not going to be calling press until the elbows break the bottom of the elbows break the top of the shoulder joint, and I don't see how you're going to see the top of the shoulder joint. It's not a great rule change, in my opinion. I know a lot of the internet is celebrating it. I just don't see this in practice working. It does sound good on paper. It sounds easy on paper. Elbows break the shoulders. but it's worded very weirdly, and again, in practice, show me the top of the shoulder joint, and their Microsoft paints. There's examples. Go look at the pictures. It is fucking weird. And again, I don't think it's gonna work out. It's supposed to go into effect 2023. Maybe they will, change the wording, make it a bit more clear, and by the time it gets here, I don't know. And again, I think the unintended consequences. I think there's some big guys, some stocky guys, maybe some stocky ladies that don't do the big arch. They are just big with short arms and big chested, and they might already have pinkies inside the rings, and this might force them to an even closer grip. Again, observationally speaking, I've seen a lot of rumblings about people that left the USAPL for the IPF affiliate for a chance to compete internationally coming back to USAPL because they don't have this rule. No other federation currently has this rule, which is another thing that fucking cracks me up. You're seeing a lot of people celebrating this rule change, and it's like, bro, you compete in APA or SPF or RPS. You can still hyper arch in those federations. Like, it didn't change for your fed. You're celebrating something in a fed that you'll never even compete in. It's funny to me, but yeah. That's kind of my scatterbrained thoughts on it. I think it is not a good rule change. I think it's going to be very impractical. I think when you make a rule based on a very small minority of lifters, and then it's going to affect lifters outside of that very, very, very small minority, I don't think this is a logical rule change. I think this is, again, the IPF being bullied by internet trolls and wanting to create a better optic. Maybe it's that long play still at the Olympics, which I don't see happening. And I don't... Mitigating an athlete's ability to provide or to perform or display movement economy in sport is not anything I'm for. All of that said, if you are a lifter who competes in IPF affiliates and you are going to continue to compete in IPF affiliates, as a lifter, it is your responsibility to make sure that your lift is to the standards of the rules. Whether you agree with the rules or not, if you're going to compete there, it is what it is, and you're going to have to adjust accordingly if you continue to compete there. And that's something I've said, before the rule change. I've said, hey, the rules are the rules, get the fuck over it. After this rule change, even though I don't agree with it, it's the same thing. If you're going to compete there, the rules are the rules, and you're going to have to abide by them and make your bench as such. So it's going to be funny in these powerlifting groups, people posting bench presses asking for a depth check.